Battling Bad Science by Mindy Hoskins, a comparison of two different studies. To get started, we'll be looking at internal and external validity. First of all, I found both of these sources online at the Albertsons Library, and I searched for them that way. First of all, I want to talk about internal validity, which is the recognition that when it is associated with experimental research, it refers both to how well the study was run, research design, operational definitions used, how variables were measured, what was or was not measured, etc., and how confidently one can conclude that the change in the dependent variable was produced solely by the independent variable and not extraneous ones. And then external validity is the extent to which a study's results can be generalized or applied to other people's settings. These two things are the most common things you're going to be looking for to figure out whether a study is legitimate or not. So the first study we're going to be looking at is the association between time in bed and obesity risk in young adults. This study had 205 participants ages 18 to 25, which they called a high-risk age group. They did two different analyses, one looking at different lifestyles and one just looking at BMI and sleep duration. They used a quadratic ortholongal within the regression to assess the overall association between the 5 categories time in bed variable with BMI. This way they could look not only at people's BMI and their time in bed, but they could also take other factors into association, such as smoking cigarettes and other things as well. They found that there was a U-shaped pattern in the results, and they found that BMI was significantly higher in individuals who reported sleeping less than 6 hours per night. In evaluating this study, I ran into a few issues with the external and internal validity. First of all, the age group that the study uses is a very small gap and doesn't apply to a whole lot of people and is not found in other studies very often. So that can cause harm to the external validity of the study. Also, the study was distributed by sending email blasts, internet ads, and posting in the university paper and around campus, making the sample population possibly biased because it's only coming from one source, which is going to cause harm to the external validity. The height, weight, and number of hours slept were all self-reported, which can threaten the internal validity of the study because people are not always honest in these surveys. No graphs or images were used to help visually show the results of what they found. This is an inadequate presentation of descriptive statistics, which makes the findings harder to comprehend. Although this study was peer-reviewed and got put onto a website, does not mean that it was a good source to use. The next study that we're going to look at is the relationship between body mass index and perceived insufficient sleep among U.S. adults, an analysis of 2008 BRFSS data. Behavioral Risk Factor Surveillance System is BRFS, and they do an annual survey each year. This data is from 2008. There was a total of 384,541 U.S. adults that filled out the survey, and they used 92.8% of all the survey respondents. They were ages 18 and up, and they were trying to find out not only health risk behaviors, but they were also looking at people who are experiencing insufficient sleep and different BMIs. The results of this study found that, in general, age was inversely associated with days of insufficient sleep, with adults aged 18 to 34 reporting the most days of insufficient sleep, and those aged 65 or older reporting the fewest. As you can see by the age graph, there was most participants were 65 years or older, and you can see in the graph that they were having the least amount of insufficient sleep. In summary, the first study we looked at had more threats to internal and external validity than the second one. However, both studies were surveys that were self-reported on behaviors and height and weight. The first study didn't logically just display their data, but they did have data that came to a hard conclusion. Although some things seem seemingly small, such as displaying your data in a graph, they can interfere with validity and make sources look less credible.